Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive. And today we're going to be talking about The War on Normal People by Andrew Yang.
Ooh, this is a good one.
Yeah, I thought so. It's a really fascinating look at the future of work.
And what that future might hold.
Right, and especially the impact of automation on, everyday Americans.
Yeah.
So what I really appreciated of this book is that Yang is coming from a very interesting perspective.
Yeah.
He's not some Luddite, tech-phobic outsider. He's actually been deeply embedded in the tech world.
Right. He's been an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
He's founded companies. He's invested in startups.
Exactly.
So he's coming at this from a place of experience.
Yeah.
Having seen firsthand how technology is developing and what that means.
Right. And so when he starts sounding the alarm about automation and its potential negative consequences, it really makes you pay attention.
Yeah, it hits differently coming from someone like him.
Exactly.
Because he's not just speculating. He's seen it happening in real time.
One of the things that really struck me early in the book is how he challenges this statistic that we hear all the time. About 70% of Americans being middle class.
Oh, yeah.
He basically says that that definition is becoming obsolete.
Right.
Because the economic landscape is changing so rapidly because of automation that the old rules don't apply anymore. And it's not just him saying this. I mean, even the Obama White House, not exactly a hotbed of radical thinking.
Right.
Put out a report a few years ago predicting that 83% of jobs paying under $20 an hour are vulnerable to automation.
Wow.
So that's a massive chunk of the workforce.
Yeah, that's huge.
That's potentially millions of people who could be out of work in the coming years.
Yeah, I mean, think about all the different sectors that could be impacted.
Exactly.
Like retail, food service, transportation,
manufacturing,
office jobs.
It's really across the board.
Right. This isn't just about blue-collar jobs anymore. It's white-collar jobs, too.
And it's not just some theoretical future threat either. Yang tells this really chilling story about a friend of his who works in software. And her job is basically to develop AI that can replace call center workers.
Oh, yeah.
And she just kind of shrugs and says, yeah, there are going to be massive job losses. It's going to be a lost generation.
Wow.
And it's just so casual.
It's scary how matter-of-fact she is about it.
Right. It's like this is just the inevitable outcome of progress.
And for her, it's just business.
Right.
But for the people who are losing their jobs, it's their lives.
Exactly.
It's their families.
It's their livelihoods.
And Yang really gets that.
Yeah.
He understands the human cost of these technological advancements.
Yeah. And he's not just making this up. He spent years working with startups through his organization Venture for America.
Right.
And he saw firsthand how these companies, while they're creating some new jobs, they often require very specific skills and usually college degrees, which leaves a huge portion of the population behind.
Right. The people who don't have those qualifications are getting left out of the equation.
Exactly.
And the gap between the haves and the have-nots is just getting wider.
So when Yang talks about this war on normal people, who is he talking about?
Well, he paints this picture of someone with, less than an associate's degree, earning around $17 an hour.
Yep.
Probably living in the suburbs.
Struggling to make ends meet.
Right. These are the people who are already feeling the squeal.
But automation is about to make it a whole lot worse.
Right. Because they're the ones whose jobs are most likely to be automated.
And to make it even more concrete for our listeners, think about your own life. Think about the things you do on a regular basis. You probably shop online. You probably order takeout. You probably deal with call centers from time to time.
Oh, yeah, all the time.
All of those sectors are prime targets for automation.
Right. It's all about efficiency.
Yeah.
Cutting costs.
And AI is getting really good at handling those tasks.
Yeah, and companies are realizing that they can save a lot of money by replacing human workers with machines.
So let's start with retail. Remember those giant malls we used to hang out in as teenagers?
Oh, yeah.
A lot of them are becoming ghost towns these days.
It's true.
E-commerce, especially Amazon, is completely changing the game.
Yeah. I mean, who can resist the convenience of shopping from your couch?
And getting everything delivered to your door.
Right.
And Yang doesn't pull any punches when it comes to describing Amazon's tactics. He talks about how they basically undercut their competitors.
Oh, yeah.
Drive them out of business.
Predatory pricing.
Exactly.
Right.
Like what happened with diapers.com.
Yeah. They just swallowed them whole.
It's a classic example of disrupt or be disrupted.
And Amazon is definitely the disruptor.
Right.
But at what cost?
That's the question. And then there's the food service industry.
Oh, yeah.
Those fast food drive-thrus we see everywhere, they're practically designed for robots at this point.
That's true.
And Yang even mentions how the CEO of McDonald's is defending low wages while simultaneously investing heavily in automation.
Interesting.
Yeah, it makes you wonder whose interests are really being served here.
Right.
Right.
Are they trying to make their business more efficient, or are they just trying to squeeze every last penny out of their workers?
That's a tough question.
And it's a question that a lot of companies are going to be facing as automation becomes more and more prevalent.
We've talked a little bit about call centers.
Yeah, your friend who's building the robots to take over those jobs.
Exactly. It's all about efficiency and cutting costs, and AI is getting really good at handling those customer interactions.
It's amazing how sophisticated chatbots are getting these days.
It's true.
Sometimes you can't even tell if you're talking to a real person or a machine.
And then there's the trucking industry.
Oh, yeah, another one ripe for disruption.
Self-driving trucks are no longer science fiction.
Right. They're already being tested on the roads.
Yeah. And that means that millions of truck driving jobs could vanish in the coming years.
And that's a lot of people.
It is.
A lot of families who depend on those jobs.
And Yang is particularly worried about this one because of the potential for social unrest.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine you've been driving trucks for 20 years. You've built a life around it.
You own your own rig, maybe?
And then suddenly a machine comes along and takes your job away.
It's got to be devastating.
It would be. And what do you do?
Right. Where do you go?
That's a recipe for anger and frustration.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just about the economic impact either.
Yeah.
It's about people's sense of identity, their sense of purpose.
Their sense of pride.
Truck driving is a tough job.
It is.
But it's also a skilled job.
You got to be able to handle those big rigs.
You got to know how to navigate the roads.
You got to be able to deal with all kinds of weather conditions.
And to have that taken away from you by a machine.
It's got to be a real blow.
Yeah.
And it's not just blue-collar jobs that are at risk either. Yang points out that even those white-collar jobs, the ones that require thinking and creativity,
are starting to feel the heat from automation.
It's true.
He gives this really interesting example of a dentist visit.
Okay.
And how even a dentist's work can be seen as partly manual. I mean, they're using tools, they're working with their hands.
Right.
And if that's true, what does it mean for all those office jobs that involve routine tasks?
Oh, yeah, like data entry, answering emails.
All that stuff can be automated.
Right, and it's already happening.
The line between intellectual and manual labor is getting really blurry.
And that's what makes this whole situation so challenging.
Yeah.
Because the traditional solutions like retraining programs, they often just don't work in this new environment.
They're too slow.
Right.
They're too narrowly focused.
They're based on assumptions about the job market that are no longer valid.
So if retraining isn't the answer, what is?
Well, Yang gets pretty radical here.
He does.
He proposes something called universal basic income.
Or UBI. Yeah, basically giving every American adult a certain amount of money every month, no strings attached.
It sounds pretty crazy at first.
It does. But Yang makes a compelling case for it.
Yeah. We're going to dive into that more in the next part of our deep dive.
Stay tuned.
So universal basic income, UBI, it's a pretty radical idea.
It is.
Yeah.
But it's been gaining a lot of traction lately.
Yeah. It's definitely been in the news a lot, and Yang is a big proponent of it.
He calls it the freedom dividend.
Right.
And he proposes giving every American adult $12,000 per year.
Just like that?
No strings attached.
I mean, I can see how that would be appealing.
Right. Who wouldn't want an extra $12,000 a year?
Exactly. But how on earth would we pay for something like that?
That's the big question.
And Yang does have some ideas about that.
He talks about implementing a 10% value-added tax, or VAT.
A VAT? I'm not familiar with that.
It's a tax on consumption.
Okay.
It's pretty common in Europe.
Oh, I see.
And Yang argues that it could generate enough revenue to fund the freedom dividend.
Without hurting most Americans.
Right. He says that it would actually be pretty progressive.
Meaning?
That the wealthy would end up paying a larger share of their income.
Interesting. So the idea is that this VAT would essentially shift the tax burden away from labor.
And towards consumption.
Which makes sense in a world where automation is replacing jobs.
Exactly. Because if people aren't working, they're not earning income.
So they're not paying income taxes.
Right.
But they're still consuming goods and services.
So they would be paying the VAT.
Okay. I can see how that would work. But I still have to ask, would giving people money so they don't have to work actually stimulate the economy?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
And it's one that a lot of people have.
Because it seems counterintuitive.
It does. But Yang argues that it would actually boost the economy.
How?
Because when people have more money, they spend more money.
Okay.
And that increased spending would create demand for goods and services.
Which would lead to more businesses opening.
More jobs being created?
I'm still not entirely convinced.
Well, there's actually some evidence to support this idea.
Oh, really?
There was an experiment in Canada in the 1970s called Mincome.
Mincome?
Yeah, it's a guaranteed income program.
So like UBI?
Yeah, basically. And they found that it had some really positive effects on the local economy.
Like what?
Well, people started spending more money at local businesses.
Okay.
Which helped those businesses grow.
And create more jobs.
Exactly. And they also found that it had some other social benefits, too.
Tell me more about that.
Well, they saw a decrease in hospital visits.
Really?
Yeah. And a decrease in crime rates.
Wow.
And an increase in high school graduation rates.
So it sounds like giving people a basic income actually made the community healthier.
It did. It reduced stress. It gave people more security.
And it allowed them to invest in themselves and their families.
Right.
That's pretty amazing.
It is, and it's just one example of how UBI could potentially transform our society.
It's definitely a radical idea.
But it's one that's worth considering seriously.
Especially as automation continues to reshape the world of work.
We need to be thinking outside the box.
And exploring new solutions.
To make sure that everyone has the opportunity to thrive.
Right. Because the future is coming whether we're ready for it or not.
That's for sure.
And we need to make sure that it's a future that works for all of us.
Not just a select few.
So UBI is one piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
But Yang also talks about this other really interesting idea called digital social credit.
Ooh, now that sounds like something out of a Black Mirror episode.
I know, right? But it's not what you think.
It's not some kind of dystopian social scoring system?
No, Yang's version is actually quite different.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
So basically it's about recognizing and rewarding activities that are valuable to society, but that often go unpaid.
Right.
Volunteering.
Okay.
Helping out your neighbors.
Right.
Contributing to community projects.
Things that make our community stronger.
Exactly.
But that don't necessarily have a monetary value attached to it.
Right. And so under this digital social credit system, you would earn credits for doing these kinds of things.
Interesting.
And then you could exchange those credits for things like goods and services.
Oh, wow.
Or recognition, or even opportunities.
Oh, it's like a parallel economy.
Yeah.
Based on social good.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool.
It is. And it's a way of valuing those contributions that are so often overlooked.
And it could really incentivize people to get involved in their communities.
And to make a difference.
Right. Because it would show them that their efforts are being recognized and appreciated.
Even if they're not getting paid for them.
Yeah.
So UBI and digital social credit are two of the big ideas that Yang puts forward. But he also delves into some of the broader societal trends that are causing so much anxiety right now.
Like what?
Well, he talks about the decline in marriage.
Yeah.
The rise in single mothers.
The growing number of young men who are dropping out of the workforce.
And spending all their time playing video games.
Right. They're retreating into virtual worlds.
Because they feel like they don't have a place in the real world.
And Yang connects these trends to the economic pressures and uncertainty that are being created by job displacement.
Because when people lose their jobs, they lose more than just a paycheck.
Right. They lose their sense of purpose.
Their sense of identity.
Their sense of belonging.
And that can have a ripple effect throughout society.
Absolutely. It can lead to social isolation.
Depression.
Substance abuse.
Crime.
Political extremism.
It's a really bleak picture.
It is. And Yang doesn't shy away from that.
But he also offers some hope.
He does.
Because he believes that we have a choice.
We can either continue down this path of market-driven automation,
where the benefits go to a select few,
and millions are left behind,
or we can embrace what he calls human capitalism.
Okay. I like the sound of that.
Yeah, it's a vision for a future where human well-being is prioritized.
Over profits and efficiency.
And where technology is used to empower people.
Not to displace them.
And that's what we're going to be exploring in the next part of our deep dive.
So stay tuned.
Okay, so we've explored these big ideas, universal basic income, digital social credit. But Yang doesn't just throw these ideas out there. He actually offers a roadmap for how to implement them.
Yeah, he gets really practical and dives into specifics.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of his concrete proposals, starting with healthcare.
Okay, healthcare is a big one.
It is. And as we've discussed, Yang is very critical of the current healthcare system in the U.S.
Right. He sees it as a system that's just not working for most people.
Too expensive, too bureaucratic, and too focused on treating problems after they arise rather than preventing them.
And he believes that technology, AI in particular, can play a huge role in transforming healthcare for the better.
Yeah, this is where his idea for these primary care specialists comes in, right?
Exactly.
So remind us how that would work.
Well, imagine highly trained professionals, not necessarily doctors, but people who are equipped with AI-powered tools to diagnose and treat common health problems. This could make basic healthcare much more accessible and affordable, especially in areas where doctors are scarce.
Yeah, like rural areas or underserved communities.
Exactly. It's about bringing healthcare to the people rather than making people travel long distances to see a doctor.
And it could free up doctors to focus on those more complex cases that require their specialized expertise.
Right. So it's not about replacing doctors with robots.
No.
It's about augmenting their capabilities.
And extending their reach.
Exactly. Using technology to make the system more efficient and more equitable.
It's kind of like taking what the tech world does so well, scaling up, using technology to reach a wider audience.
Right. Democratizing access to something that's currently very expensive and out of reach for many.
So healthcare is one area where Yang sees technology playing a transformative role, and education is another one.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do we prepare the next generation for a world where automation is changing the nature of work so rapidly?
That's the million-dollar question.
It is. And Yang argues that we need to shift our focus in education.
Away from rote memorization and standardized tests.
Yeah, that stuff is not going to cut it in the future.
Right. We need to be teaching kids how to think critically, how to be creative, how to solve problems, how to adapt to new situations.
Those are the skills that are going to be in high demand regardless of what specific jobs exist 10 or 20 years from now.
Exactly. Because we don't know what the future holds.
Right.
The jobs that are in demand today might not even exist tomorrow.
So we need to equip kids with the tools to be lifelong learners.
To be adaptable, to be resilient.
And Yang also emphasizes the importance of vocational training and apprenticeships.
Yeah. Making sure that there are pathways for people to learn those essential trades that will always be needed.
Like plumbing, electrical work, carpentry.
And those are jobs that are hard to automate.
Yeah. You need a human touch for that kind of work.
And there will always be a demand for people with those skills.
Right.
So it's about recognizing that not everyone needs a 4-year college degree to succeed in life.
Exactly. There are many different paths to a good life.
And we need to value and invest in a wider range of skills and talents.
So healthcare and education are two key areas where Yang proposes some pretty bold reforms. But his vision goes even deeper than that.
He does.
He talks about the need for a fundamental shift in our values, a shift in how we relate to each other and to the world around us.
Yeah, he sees a connection between the economic anxieties that people are feeling and the rise in social isolation, the political polarization, the decline of trust in institutions.
It's like our social fabric is fraying.
Yeah, it's like we're losing our sense of community, our sense of shared purpose.
And that's where his idea for an American exchange program comes in.
Right, a really ambitious idea.
So refresh our memory, how would that work?
Well, Yang proposes that every high school graduate would spend a month living and working in a different part of the country, experiencing a different culture, a different way of life.
So someone from a small rural town might spend a month in a big city.
Right, and vice versa.
It's about breaking down those geographical and cultural barriers that divide us.
Exactly. Fostering empathy, understanding a sense of shared national identity.
Yeah, because we're all Americans, even if we come from different backgrounds.
And we have more in common than we often realize.
So this American exchange program, it's like a massive investment in social cohesion.
It is. It's about building bridges instead of walls.
And it's a reminder that we're all in this together.
That's right.
And Yang's vision goes even beyond policy prescriptions. He's calling for a shift in our individual mindsets.
Yeah, a shift in how we think about success, about purpose, about what truly matters in life.
He keeps coming back to that question, whom do we serve, humanity or the market?
It's a powerful question.
It is. It forces us to confront our values.
To ask ourselves if we're willing to challenge the status quo.
To build a world where human well-being is truly at the center.
And that's the heart of human capitalism.
It is. It's not just about tweaking the system around the edges.
It's about creating a fundamentally different kind of society.
One that prioritizes people over profits.
And it uses technology to empower people rather than to displace them.
And the war on normal people, it's a call to action.
It is.
It's a reminder that we have a choice to make.
We can either passively accept the future that's being shaped by technological forces,
or we can actively create a future that works for everyone.
And Yang believes that we have the power to do that.
He does. And his book gives us the tools and the inspiration to start building that better future.
If you're feeling anxious about the future, if you're worried about the impact of automation, this book offers a path forward.
It's a reminder that we're not powerless, that we have agency, and that together we can create a world that's more equitable and more humane.
That's a future worth fighting for.
Absolutely. And that's what makes this book so compelling. It's not just a diagnosis of the problem, it's a blueprint for a better future and a roadmap for how to get there. So if you're looking for a reason to be hopeful about the future,
check out The War on Normal People.
It's a must-read for anyone who cares about the future of work, the future of our society, and the future of humanity.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
We'll see you next time.